This is Guy Cihi, and you're listening to the Retro Unlearn Network.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 117 of I Got Gameplay. Yes, it's me again. It's the amazing sleep-deprived apnea guy known as Michael Burhan, of course, your host of hosts, your man of many hats. And also today we have with us, returning to the show, of course, the sultry and succulent voice of Mr. Xander, Excess Gaming Podcast Scullion. Xander, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Actually, I stepped outside to drink a cup of coffee because it's like 8 a.m. over here. And eerily enough, it's foggy outside.
Ooh.
It's really moody. It's kind of cool.
See, guys, that gives us kind of a little peek into what today's show is about. If you haven't heard last week's show, why haven't you? But today's show, we'll tell you a little bit about it in a second, because we first need to introduce the other host on our panel, of course. She's the lovely, the sultry, and also she swears like a blue sailor and tells me everything wrong about Capcom because she wants to go down to their offices with a big paper bag of poop. Yes, she is the lovely Jamie Styles.
Well, you got that right.
So, Jamie, you were telling me that you've basically been checking out some Let's Plays of Resident Evil Revelations 2. I went to the event quite recently, and you're telling me that there was a few issues that you had with the game in question.
Yeah. I watched this walkthrough. I follow him, and frankly, I like his walkthrough that's called Mike Betancourt on YouTube, and he does full walkthroughs where he basically will more than likely take no damage in his walkthrough. He knows where every hidden item is, every story, every note, and everything like that, and it's pretty good. And I made it through Claire's first episode, and I am just it's the running mechanic, the animation around the environment, it looks really weird. There's a lot of problems that I have with the game. If you want to play Resident Evil Revelations 2, odds are you already have if you played Code Veronica. That's pretty much where I'm at right now. Also, the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, Alex Wesker, when they put his name in the Japanese notes in Resident Evil, they used the kanji for the male name. And now Alex Wesker is a female. And it's just really confusing. I don't see where they're taking the story at this point, though it's only episode 1, and this is the only game I pretty much had to force myself to watch. And I'm so disappointed, and I don't think they know what they're doing anymore, honestly.
Yeah, it's a very weird situation. I think it's them being very creative with the license. They kind of brought it back to prominence in a sense. But saying about being creative with licenses, we've got someone today, a very, very special guest. I discussed a little bit about him being on the show, and someone that I'm mesmerized by, basically, as he's part of kind of my childhood and one of my obsessions, basically, from playing Silent Hill. He is the voice of James Sunderland. He's also got a new project coming up. He is the amazing Mr. Guy Cihi. Guy, how are you doing today, sir?
Hello, my name is Guy Cihi. I'm looking for I Got Gameplay. Is this the right way?
Yes, it is, good sir. And you know, the funny thing, as Xander pointed out, is actually it's actually foggy today, so it gives us that kind of nice Silent Hill atmosphere. Now, Guy,
well, I guess I really don't care if it's foggy. I'm going to I Got Gameplay either way.
well, speaking of that, you're very different in terms of voice actors, because you know a lot of the guys that have been in this business, they've either gone into like video game voice acting through doing animations, or vice versa, or had some kind of experience as, you know, like actors, for instance. But the
Yes.
way you kind of went into voice acting was kind of different in comparison. Tell us a little bit about that and how you secured your role on Silent Hill 2 as James Sunderland.
I am the anomaly. I'm the fly. I'm the fly that changed Tuttle into Buttle, something like that. If you know what I mean. Something happened. Something went wrong that day. They couldn't find James Sunderland, and I showed up there to bring my daughter to the interview, and I had the temerity to ask them if I could read for the part, and somehow the machine was dozing at that moment, and they let me in the room, and I spoke, and for some reason nobody except Team Silent was there, and those guys also don't really care what other people think, and that's how that happened. To tell you the truth, I mean, to speak at a very a meta level. So what was happening at that time was people who were available were tapped to come in and record lines from a script for a game that was either in process or perhaps nearing completion. They were given some instruction, little if any visual input, and then recorded. If they were being recorded across culture from, say, for example, in my case, a Japanese production company to an English talent, there was always this likelihood of miscommunication. That was the past up to the point where I came along. Then I got in there, and Monica was there too. Monica and I both had studied acting at college, and I think part of us wanted to be an actor or somehow connected with show business, but we ended up being practical and going into other areas of opportunity that came to us. So here suddenly we had this opportunity to be actors, and that opportunity was not wasted on us. We both went to town and, in fact, drove each other to explore how far we could go with the material we were being given. Now, that didn't really affect everyone the same way, but it certainly affected she and I. I'm 100% certain of that. Now, after that, I can tell you how the, let's call it the zeitgeist shifted. Forget about how my role was, but what happened afterward is the industry started making a lot of money, and one day it woke up and it realized, my God, we gross more money than Hollywood does. I guess this would be about 8-9 years ago, maybe 11. And suddenly the game industry was bigger than Hollywood. And they thought, well, damn, we should hire some professional actors to do these games. We've been hiring people who do local TV ads for the car company and the insurance agent in the state for radio. So they'd be getting instead of somebody's friend, or someone who was perhaps worked as an announcer or recorded some English language learning tapes in the country, they had upgraded to hiring local voice talent. So it started with really professional voice talent or maybe amateur voice talent. Then they went to a higher notch for commercial voice talent who did TV ads and radio ads. And now they're hiring guys like Norman Reedus and I think other famous name brand voices and faces, really. And I think what may have shifted it towards, say, Norman Reedus, if I may just use him as an example, is the fact that the mocap equipment that they're using today costs less than what they used in my era, and that mocap equipment shoots your face at the same time you're talking and giving the lines. So now there's a reason, and there's a technology, and the money's all there to put in the actual faces and the expressions and the brand of an actor like Norman Reedus, and you guys know better than I do, who are some of the lead females that they've brought in from the acting world to play in games. Now we're in the new generation, where there'll be indie games with indie talent, but there's also going to be these mega games, and that's why, in my humble opinion, I don't really know the details. Maybe you guys know. What happened to the fellow who played Wesker? Why did they cut him out? I mean, he was a fan favorite.
Yeah, I believe they killed his character off in. They killed him off in Resident Evil 5, I believe. Is that right, Jamie?
According to Jamie, he's come back as a female.
Yeah, that's
his brother, sister.
His sister's back.
His brother / sister.
Confirmed Albert Wesker was killed off in Resident Evil 5 by falling into a volcano, which is completely and utterly bogus because tyrants can't be killed by fire.
Yeah. Well, so I think what's happened, as I say, is I was the anomaly. I messed everyone up because I was not a professional, as in I make my living by going to studios and recording my voice. And so I got to hurry this up, fellas, because I got a 5 o'clock I got to make, all right? So I come in and I do it in 3 hours because I'm getting paid. I know exactly how much I'm getting paid by the hour, and I got to go when I'm done because you're not paying me for when I'm not here. And forget about appearing in the making of video or any of that stuff or those kind of rights, because that stuff doesn't happen. It's never happened before, and we're just making these games, and come on, we're all on the clock here. That was the generation before I started. So I walked into that, and I'm like, no, I really don't care about how long it takes us to get this right. And Monica was the same way. We want this to be right. This is our big thing. This is our chance on the stage. And actually, neither of us cared if anyone ever saw it. Either. We're doing our thing. And we didn't know that it was a success. No one told us. And for that, I am still upset with Konami. To this day, no one from Konami has ever said, you guys did a great job in that game. It's amazing. No one has ever said that. I get it from fans. And then I went and we had to track down Monica to find out if she would, how she felt about that whole HD thing. And let me tell you, she had her own beef with Konami about the making of video, where I think she sent them had a lawyer write them a letter they had no right to do what they had done.
Yeah, because it's a very.
They were all cold about that as well. So, except for that, so you were asking me, well, how did I get that job? It was a mistake. That's what it was. And
so one thing I want to ask you about, because it's a very different kind of industry, because in being kind of a jobbing actor myself, and when you work within this industry, especially when you're doing voiceovers, there's two certain things that the companies do, and a lot of it was highlighted as well. If you look at kind of one of the best documentaries that was done about this situation was the one that Twin Perfect did on the real Silent Hill, because they talk a lot of candidly about this, and they have an interview with yourself on there as well, and they talk about the fact that when you do a project with a company, whether it's like voiceovers with Konami, whether it's doing a commercial, they usually do two things. You get a royalty payment, which is what we call a kind of a back end deal, where they negotiate that you get a payment for everything that's done. and then there's the buyout where they'll pay for your likeness and your presentation as that character. So you'll get that kind of one-off fee. You sign the rights to yourself away as that character. So, for instance, you'll be signing yourself as Guy Cihi, as James Sunderland off.
So you would have to, since a lot of the game production work follows the California law, that being especially, say, after the year 2000, because more and more games were being organized and out of there, or they were coming out of the Canada centers, the Canadian city that was producing games and artists, providing artists for the game production. So look at California law, for example, since it's probably the best example of artists' rights and producers' rights as a starting place. Or, for example, there's a union of artists who perform using their voice or their body or whatever, but in particular there's one for like radio and narration and voice talent, which applies to games as well. And what you'll find is that without giving away, without signing away your specific rights, you retain them. So in order for Konami or any game company to get certain rights, like you just described, attaching your name or face to promoting the project or reproducing it on other platforms in other territories, in order for them to get those rights, they have to have them on a piece of agreement, or they have to disclose them that, oh, by the way, with this money we pay you, these rights belong to us. Otherwise, they vest with the talent. So rights not granted vest with the talent, in particular as regards in perpetuity, or beyond what was actually done. And that means, in order for there to be awareness or agreement on the rights, there has to be some kind of little set of bullet points, maybe, at least, of what we're talking about. And the problem with Konami was, at least in Monica and my case, and apparently Dave and Donna as well, is there was nothing. Now, Dave had worked on other games, and he'd been paid additional monies when the games were a hit. So if a game went out and they were paid to do it, then the game was a hit, and they issued it again, or they expanded it to, say, from a PS2 to a PS4, or they put it out on a 360, then they would go back and pay everybody something. Because, you see, in his generation, the production company, they didn't go online and look for talent or ask their friends or something. They went back to the same agent they go to every time, and the same agent they're going to go to the next time. So they have an ongoing relationship with their provider, and they're always, as if you know about Japan, there's always a chain of nakagainin, Naka, in the middle, people in the middle. So there's all these people who are essentially brokering deals between other parties and taking a little piece. So to keep those guys happy, they have to kick them back some money. Otherwise, they're going to say, hey, those guys kind of screwed me the last time there. They didn't pay any money on that. So Dave got money from additional releases of the game, and he knew that. So that was kind of standard practice in Japan. This game was in that difficult year 2000 era where, Japan was, I don't know what happened to them. It's like they thought that, gee, we're too Japanese to make games for the global world. We have to hire some foreigners because these foreigners are making games, and they know more the foreigners know the way of the foreigners. So let's have these foreign teams make our games for us. Okay. And then they shifted to the foreigners, and then they started hiring according to their practices. So you have people who they're hiring to do games like the kids who did the HD collection for the little group that they hired to do the HD collection. So they went out and got their talent, and they're used to thinking about how they got paid on their games. And they live in Canada or the U.S. or wherever they were. I think Mary's from Canada and Troy's from California. So they think, oh, okay, that's the way it's done. This is the way it's always been done. We don't get any residual or royalty payments on the future. What was Guy talking about? And I was talking about what Dave told me, because Dave's been doing games in Japan for like 10 years and been a professional voice talent for 10 years. I never spoke to Donna about it, and Monica had moved on to Hawaii by that time, so she was out of the picture. So you see, we have, like, okay, in Japan, it's consistent with how things were done to get a little more money and consideration when the game's a success and moves to other territories and other platforms. In the U.S., it's not. They do a buyout. So, and yet I never was shown any contracts for either arrangement. No one ever, there was no contract. So anyway, it's a big mess. Right? You got people with expectations for how it should be done, and people with expectations on the other in the other country for how it's done there.
It's a weird situation as well, because it's...
And I'm the only one, because of my background, who ever asked for the contract. I'm like, is there going to be a contract for this? Oh, yeah, that don't, it's for the PlayStation 2, and it's for the U.S. market, and yeah, don't worry. I mean, and basically they get all your rights, so that's it. You do this, they pay you, and that's it. They own all the rights to your performance. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Then a couple of weeks go by, and I say, is there going to be a contract? Because I'd like to, see it. Don't forget why I took the job in the first place, why I was interested in the first place. Why I said to my daughter, I'm living in Italy at the time, and she says, this is my daughter with my first wife. She said, Dad, there's a poster for this game. Can you take me to the audition? Mom won't take me. I'm like, oh, geez. I pluck my heartstrings. Oh, sure, darling. Listen, I'm going to be in Japan on that weekend, and I can take you. It's on a Tuesday, right? Yeah, I can take you. I'll do that. I fly over from Italy, and I'm very interested in virtual reality. It was on my agenda as a growth industry, and it turns out that I was right. It grew tremendously. It's a huge unsung hero of entertainment right now. It's where all the money's being made. So I thought I got to get in up close and see how this works. That's why I was very interested. That's why I jumped at the chance to take her to this interview. This PlayStation 2 game. Oh, that's all she knew. Dad, it's for a PlayStation 2 game. I said, oh, sure, darling, I'll take you. So we get there. Now, I'm going in from the start with a very keen interest in learning how this industry works. And I know anyone who's ever done business knows the value of a template. So I'm going to get a template for how the characters, how the talent are being managed by the company. Once I get this contract, I will know exactly how these game companies who create virtual realities pay the talent. You with me? Hello?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I'm very keen to get a contract from these guys. They never delivered. So they had either they're dummies, and people from outside are looking at them as if they really know what they're doing, and they don't, or they wanted to not give me a contract for some reason. Actually, I think they were just dummies, and they really didn't need a contract. Or maybe somebody in the value chain, one of those Nakagaini, dropped the ball. Maybe somebody else was supposed to get the contract with me. But no, I asked everybody who I could see there to get me a copy of this contract. So I really don't want to hear any stories about people speculating, as to what rights I was supposed to get or what my expectation or what my confusion was with them. You weren't there. I was. I asked for a contract. They never produced one. It's as simple as that. Then later on, when I found out the game was a huge hit and that Monica was pissed off because they had used her face in the making of video, and she was aware that they had violated her expectations based on the verbal agreements they had made with her, all of a sudden it hit me. Oh, my goodness. These guys play fast and loose. I think I'll just find out what the deal is here. So they're like, okay, it's come to our attention. Not what a great, so nice to hear, we're glad to find you again. It's come to our attention that we're missing the paperwork on the agreements. So if you wouldn't mind, just sign this blanket release, please, and send it back to us. This came from their legal department in California, right as they were, buttoning up the little loose ends, I suppose, before accepting somebody's plan to re-release Silent Hill 2 on new game platforms, and they figured, well, maybe we should check the files, make sure we have the rights cleared for that. Oh, sure enough, they got nothing in the files. So somebody said, well, let's look, just send out these blanket release to Cihi and Shoffley and Horgan, right?
Yeah,
so they sent all those out. That's where the whole problem started. And I wrote and I said, hang on just a second. Said, hey, it's nice to hear from you. Yeah, that's an interesting subject. You didn't lose the paperwork because there is no paperwork. Because they kind of hinted that they had misplaced their files. So I asked for contracts and never got any. So now that you're saying, don't suggest that they were misplaced because they don't exist. But I'm happy to talk to you about it. So let's start talking about it. What is it that you want? And that's when it all fell apart. So from there they go like, oh my God. We have, there's one that's alive. One of it's like that moment in the movie where, oh my God, these zombies can think. There's a thinking zombie. Run! Oh my God! It is like in those zombie games. You guys play them a lot, right? So I know more than me. The zombies can only walk. They're like slowly walking, and then that first zombie comes along that can run. Yeah, this zombie runs. Go! We got to get away. So they tried to. Anyway, it was a mess.
It was a very fickle situation.
A lot more than you ever wanted to know. You asked.
Yeah, no, of course. And it's a very fickle situation because, as per, as you said, statutory law, this should have been done. As a company, there was mismanagement there, and they should have basically made sure that these things were in place so that there was no repercussions later on. And to your credit to yourself and the other actors involved, you put an epic performance. And as you've stated, one of the things that drew me to this game, one of the things that kind of made me appreciate it the most was the fact that they had that making of video. It showed the process. It showed everything that you guys did, including putting your heart and soul into these characters. It showed the motion capture technique and the way that they presented this. And, Team Silent, to their credit, they were more focused on building the game. The execs at top, the guys that should have had this corporate end should have made sure that everything was taken care of so that when it goes to mass production, because, they're not discounting for the fact this game went into platinum status. So you had first, second, third prints of this game done. You had platinum prints of the game done, so it went into classic prints. Then, you had the HD re-release of the game itself for the PlayStation 3 on digital download. Then they did the HD collection when they reproduced it. And then when it got to that point, there wasn't just this whole thing of, people getting angry. There was this whole smear campaign that went on against, and one of the targets was directly aimed at yourself when they kept saying...
I'm quite aware.
Yeah, and
that was when I powwowed with a friend who, it's funny, I see this guy, I know he's a very creative and intense person who hates the corporate life, and he lives his own life. He's a creative advisor to scripts. He's a specialist in stories and evoking emotions and feelings in readers and listeners and watchers. And he and I were out drinking heavily that night, and when I was neck deep in the back and forth with the lawyer about which signing the rights for expanded use, or actually, no, I'm sorry, they had already shut down. It had become a scandal, and I thought it was over, but then the fans were storming the gates of Konami and threatening them if they didn't put the original voices in. And I'm like, oh my Jesus, Julian, look at this mess we're in here. He says, Guy, do you really care about any money from those guys? It was imagine more colorful language, but anyway, do you really care about that? And I said, no, I really don't. It's like they don't have that much money to begin with that's going to make a big difference to me. It was never about the money. It's about the fact they didn't show any appreciation whatsoever for what we did, and why this game has so much demand after all these years. Nada. Zip. Not a word. Not a kind word. Not a nod. Not a thanks. Nothing. He's like, well, look, you know, you don't need that from them. You're getting it from the fans, right? I said, yeah. So we'll just, you know, just step back. Let them have it. Who cares? And I was like, whoa, my God. And I had to do the next day, I had to do a pirouette, a 180 turn with a plum, and explain to Monica and Dave, who were totally behind me about what they were doing was wrong, that I've suddenly had a change of heart, fellas. We're going to give away our rights because this game is now bigger than any of us. It doesn't matter. We don't matter. This is about thousands and thousands and thousands of people whose lives were affected by our performances. You don't want to miss that. You don't want to stop being part of that. And they're like, and it took a little while, you know, at least a day or two, for them to cool down in their ardor for wanting to pursue an injustice, as we all saw it, and waive our rights. And that's what we did. And that was, man, I owe it to the inspiration I got from a night out with my friend Julian to do that, to, you know, step away and take the road of peace. And like, gosh, how many times do human beings need that good advice? Look at the world today. We all need to take that advice. You know, take a deep breath, step away, choose the path of peace. And that left some people frustrated on the other end, because now all of a sudden, you know, they had also invested in battle mode, and they had to ease off that too. But fortunately, to their credit, they did. So now everyone has a living piece of evidence for what I was talking about earlier, and I was rambling on about what is it about that performance, and how did the industry change on those days in 2001 and 2000 when the game was recorded and released. The difference is you had actors who were really acting the part together and getting into it and adding depth and nuance to the performance, not professional talent who came in for 3 to 5 hours to record their lines with their beautiful big voice and their monotone or monochromatic deliveries. And that's why when you put them together, I was talking about this with Dave the other day. It's like Dave and I were out this week, because Dave's in the Forgotten Memories now. So we were recording some lines for the trailer together, and I was like, Dave, you know, how do you, I think maybe he brought it up. One way or another, we got to talking about why the performances in Silent Hill 2 have lasted so long. What is it about it? Besides the fact that it's a great story, besides the fact that it was really breakthrough at the time in terms of how they did the mocap and rendered the characters, and yeah, they had a making of video and all those, you know, wonderful things about it. The reason is, he said, your voice is not a TV or a radio type voice. You don't go on there and read these lines I mean, you have a nice voice, but you don't read the lines like the way those guys do it. You can listen to what you say, take a line from the game and listen to it over and over and over again, and you keep hearing different things in it. So
yeah, it's very organic. Very organic.
You hear other people give that line, and if they've come off from the professional circuit, you know, they've got their read. They know why they were hired, and they give that. And it's hard for them to do it, to add the nuance, because they know why they're doing it. They've already got a set way of approaching it, and that's the difference. You can listen to it over and over, and it never gets old. And then I thought, that's why I gave you the advice I did, Mike, about something else we're not going to talk about today, but we got another thing you and I were talking about. If you can listen to it over and over and over again, the same thing, and it doesn't get old, and you're always able to find something you maybe missed before, you have a very nuanced performance. Someone who's not acting. They're being. They're bringing to it feelings and emotions that are real for them. They're not acting. And they got lucky with Monica. She is Maria, and she is Mary. and they got lucky with me. Dumb luck, right? Genius luck, I should say, because it was Team Silent. They got what they wanted.
But I think
the rest of the industry is just now waking up, and they're not, I don't think, with Norman Reedus, although I don't know what he did as a man and a boy to become who he is now. I don't know what actual life experiences he has. I don't know him. I've never met him. But I know that my son is a professional actor, and when you get to be at the top of that game, you don't act. You're not acting anymore. You're just being, and that's why you're so good. You're not acting. You can always see, right? When you see somebody and oh, geez, the guy's acting. It's so obvious. That's the lowest end of the scale. If they're really good and they always do the same thing and they're good, you love them in that role. That's another end. And then there are these people that doesn't seem like they're acting at all. The camera's on, camera's off, doesn't matter.
Yes.
So maybe that's the era they're at now. They got big enough money, and they know that the launch budgets are so big they might as well put on a huge name. I mean, look at me. I'm not a gamer, and I know that Norman Reedus is going to be in Silent Hill's PT, and because they've made such a big deal out of it. And the name of the who's the producer?
Hideo Kojima.
Del Toro?
Yeah, Del Toro and Hideo Kojima are producing the game. It's basically being produced on the Fox engine. But
so Del Toro has never made a game before?
Not that I can
right. So they have two people who've never made games before are amongst the three names that are headlining it. Why? Because they bring in the bucks. That's why. They go out and they syndicate it, right? They go out and syndicate it and raise money to make it. And having those names associated with the project where they're raising money, probably in Hollywood, to the dullard old people who've finally woken up and realized, oh, we're not making as much money as we used to in the movie business. This game industry seems to be taking off. Let's get our fingers into that pie. So now they can go to those same duffers and raise some money from them for their projects because they got names they know from the film industry. It's pretty simple. That's my very primitive outsider's view on what's going on. I bet it's pretty close to the truth, though.
Well, I was talking to someone recently about this because I went to watch the 50 Shades of Grey movie with a friend of mine on Valentine's Day, and a lot of it I knew the movie was going to be bad. But when I use an analogy on that movie, I call it fast food filmmaking. Reason being, what they do is they take a concept, they quickly rush that concept into like a film, and then they're making it specifically for the audience that cater towards it. So they've made something like nearly $500 million on a $40 million budget, and a lot of it was because of the fact that it had name value from a book that was produced. So all the fans from this book went into the cinemas to watch it. You had a certain demographic of people, so they could cater the movie to that demographic. It was like visually it was nice. They had Danny Elfman do the soundtrack, but the acting was terrible. The script was beyond comprehension. If you go in there as a cinephile like I am, and also from an acting and directing perspective, you can look at it and think there's certain elements in this thing that don't work to the point where it just looks dreadful. It's almost laughable to a...
If they had any balls, they would have made that into a game. Not a movie. But they should have released it on PlayStation 4. That's what they should have done. But they're not creative people at all, are they?
No. That's the thing. It's a lot of it was
I would call that a slam dunk. That's not a... you see, it's quite different than taking famous names and putting them on a script that no one's heard of and taking it to market. That's what I think they're doing with PT. What you just described was taking a slam dunk. That was a best-selling, out of nowhere, incredible, tapped a raw nerve book, and they couldn't lose. Actually, all they could do was lose. It was already a winner. They couldn't make it any better. Another example was American Sniper. There's a book that sold so many books, there's no way it couldn't have been a big selling movie, because if you saw the book, you're going to see the movie. That's a different story, right? When you take a famous book and you turn it into a movie, it's quite a different sell, because you can go out I mean, I'm just talking about the business side of this, kids. They need to go out and raise money for it because those guys don't take any risk on themselves. Do you ever hear of something called Final Fantasy?
Yes. Xander was talking about it quite recently, actually. He's been playing Final Fantasy 11, haven't you, Xander?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so now Final Fantasy, my neighbor was one of the three founders of Square Enix. Okay? And the guy who actually started it was the boss. Very creative guy. And his friends from college became his two buddies. One was the other, like, vice president, and the third one, their drinking buddy, became the chief of operations or whatever. That was my neighbor. So he's like dumb luck. His friends are geniuses, and he's head of this fantastic, cool company with the Final Fantasy franchise. They decided, in a very Japanese way, they were going to make the movie. So, Xander, did you watch the movie Final Fantasy, the Hollywood flick they released?
yeah, and it was the Spirit Within. I watched that, and
okay.
It didn't feel like Final Fantasy, honestly.
It bankrupted the company, and they all lost their positions and were given the boot, except for the main guy who they kept on it for his face value. Sony came in and took it over because those guys decided to finance everything themselves because they were a rich game company. Every game title they released was another $50, $60 million, $100 million of cash flow, free cash flow coming in, boom. And so they could afford to give Hollywood the finger and finance their own film and bring it to the distribution by themselves. The total budget, it was expected to be $60 million. It ended up coming in $120 million out of their own pockets. It was a failure.
Yeah, there was a lot behind it as well because they were trying to make a new variation of filmmaking because they were going to use motion capture and make a series.
They didn't try. They did.
Yeah,
they did. They didn't try. They did, and it's for its time a magnificent execution. So why wasn't it a great hit? Who cares? It wasn't. Just from a business perspective, they took all the risk themselves on the investment, and they would have gotten all the money out of it, but instead they lost their company. So nobody likes to put, when there's $100 million on the line of risk capital, nobody wants to have it all coming from one pocket. That's a lot of money to lose. So they need to now have either a proven story, which is why you've got Resident Evil Part 32 coming out on Z boxes or whatever the future, and they'll still be making Resident Evil in 10 years from now, and Silent Hills 2 for that matter. I mean, you have a franchise, and so you get that allows them to raise money on the franchise, or you have a new title that comes along, which is why I said they should have made 50 Shades of Grey into a game, because then they could have released Part 2 and Part 3 and kept going. Or you have we have a game, we're not really sure it's a good idea or not. So let's get some famous names in to help push it along so we can raise some money for it. So that's the state of the industry.
I agree, and it's become very, very commonplace now. It's about branding. If you look at anything, it's like when it comes to the way that society works, you've got people who now are celebrities just by doing nothing, just by making something, like the Kardashians, for instance, are a big example of this. One of them releases a sex tape. Suddenly, the whole family is like, millionaires upon millionaires because they're getting all these branding and deals that are going through. So now, what do you do if you want to finance these games? You get corporate sponsors in. So you've got like Coca-Cola in the game now. Or if you're, as you said, we need to basically up the name value. We get actors in there. We've got the next Call of Duty. Shall we make the game great? No, we won't do that. We'll just add Kevin Spacey in there to add to the cinematics. So, because Kevin Spacey will make the game look amazing. And instead of focusing...
Did Kevin Spacey do
he did the game? He did Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and it was literally just a cut and paste of a previous Call of Duty game. There was nothing that made the game stand out, apart from the fact that Kevin Spacey was in the cinema cutscenes, and
Did they use his face too?
They used his face, they used everything. I believe for him, he probably negotiated a buyout. The game sold, the game made a lot of money, but in terms of, if you compare it to other games in the same genre, I I played like a different game called like Destiny, for instance, and I played that one, released by the same company. And I found Destiny to be more of an appealing title for me because the story was more vast and it had more range in comparison to Call of Duty, which is literally America, military, bad guy, America like comes back against the bad guy, the end. And that's
you know, I met Kevin Spacey when I was in Hollywood once, and that seems strange to me, except the last bit about it being militaristic propaganda. That part I can imagine the forces that are allied with him would have been able to, you know, his agent or whatever might have said, hey, you should do this for whatever reason. It'll be good for you. And the money's good and it's easy. You just go in and do a couple of days of recording and that's that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it as well, he took part, because the character was literally modelled around him. It was literally him, his face, you know, his character. It had his voice ingrained.
Are they going to do the same thing with this PT game with Norman Reedus? Is that how that's going to go down? Is he going to be exactly? I'm sure it will, right? I mean, that's what they wouldn't. Why bother using his name in preparing PR material?
I believe what they're doing is he's going to be acting. He's going to be acting in it, so it's going to be him in the game, and the way that the game is going to be moulding and transitioned will be around his character. So you're going to be playing. The way they revealed it in kind of the PT demo was you didn't know who you were until you finally completed it. When you figured out all the puzzles and you completed it, Norman Reedus' face came up, and then they did the whole Silent Hills thing. As a Silent Hill fan myself, I've always said that the story ended at the third game. That was it. That was the end of the Silent Hill story for me. But when they brought it over to America, because I remember when Team Silent didn't want to do it anymore. They were just like, we're done, we're burnt out, the story's been done, it's met its conclusion. But Konami wanted to keep it going because they saw it as a viable property. And the more games that kept coming out from the American wings, a lot of the issue was the miscommunication between what they wanted and what the fans wanted. And as you were saying about the HD collection, originally they wanted to, I believe the guy's name is Tom Hewlett, I believe, he wanted to rewrite the initial script and remake Silent Hill 2 in his own vision, which that he couldn't get the budget for. Konami was just like, well, we just wanted you to... Well,
I think, Michael, I would... Let's be very specific here. I mean, since he was going to use the same content, he wasn't going to shoot new content or render new materials. There's only so far he could go with what, quote, lip flapping, unquote. That was something that they came out of that group, okay, not Team Silent. Someone within that group who was going to try and re-release it on HD described the characters as lip flapping. So for them, he was going to tweak the script to the extent where it would still fit with the lips flapping, but it would be more, in his words, or in his mind, more culturally attuned to the times, perhaps, or to whatever. Personally, I think he just wanted to get his name on the credit roll.
Yeah, he wanted to be credited a lot more for it.
But not in an overt way. I don't think that was his only reason for wanting to do this. I think it would have been nice. I mean, imagine if you could go back and take any classic and somehow get your name on the end flap or on the credit roll.
I think
okay, let's just allow that he wanted to do that, but he did rewrite the script. He changed some of the wording, and Konami refused to allow him to do that.
Yeah.
Why? Well, because Konami owes a debt of respect and gratitude to the work that Team Silent did, and it would be a huge faux pas or disparagement or disrespect to those guys to allow anyone to change the script, and it wasn't necessary. So of course they said no, and that's how it came through in in Mary's infamous video that she got captured on at some con somewhere, where she revealed that Tom had rewritten the script. Those guys were pretty close, so that when that came out, maybe it wasn't. wasn't supposed to be heard. No one was supposed to know that he had tried to rewrite the script, but he did, and they rejected it to their credit. And so it really wasn't an issue. It was just something that happened in passing. He may have had his own thoughts about how it could have been improved, but that's Tom Hewlett, and so his career speaks for itself. Whatever he's done, people who are into his work, that's fine. I mean, he's got his style, but Konami wouldn't let it happen.
No, I agree, and the big thing though as well was the game was further disrupted over the fact that it had issues. There were errors in the coding. It wasn't presented properly. It looked terrible. I've got the Xbox 360 version on my shelf, which I use for a doorstop now, because you can't play it. There's no.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I told you. Did you know that I met Tom Hewlett and
no,
Devin Shatsky?
I heard about this. I heard a rumor from a friend of mine who worked in the Silent Hill forum about this. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, after the Rancor and the Mexican standoff, staring across the demilitarized zone at each other and all that tension, Monica says to me, on a Skype call, I guess, and Guy, these guys aren't really bad guys. You should come on over and let's, there might be something in it. And so I see, okay, Monica, maybe they had suggested that there might be something more, and so she wanted to bury the hatchet with them. I went over, and I took Dave because we were in a good mood, and we were going to have some fun on the West Coast, So we have to go to the West Coast big meeting with Konami. So we had something we could tell our wives, and we were gone for a long week of having a good time in L.A. by ourselves. We went to a gun club and shot some machine guns and shotguns at a gun range. You're just having a good old time. And then we have dinner with Devin Shatsky and Tom Hewlett as a kind of let's all put this behind us, and we're gonna we're friends or whatever. At least we're not enemies and so forth. So at this friendly dinner with Tom and Devin, which was worthy of a film in itself, all the unspoken innuendo going on here. He starts telling about all the difficulties they're having converting this crappy code into the HD, and all the troubles that they can't find on. It was so messy, it was so sloppy the way it was archived, and they have to use compiled, and they got to port compiled material into this new thing, and blah, all the difficulties they're having. And I was like, oh wow. Well, why are you doing it then if it's so difficult? My takeaway from that was they just figured it was an easy way to add some bucks to their budget for the year, and they're paid a bonus based on the upside they make. So if you re-release a classic on a new platform, there's going to be a certain number of people who are going to buy it. So it was an easy way to add some money. They didn't really think about this as a creative project. It was more like, how can we make some fast money and get it in this fiscal year? That was the underlying motivation for redoing it, in my opinion. having looked at it. No, I'm a businessman. No, that's what I saw. And so all their problems were about technical issues, although the voice recordings were never a problem. And anyone who suggested that the original voices, it was way back in 2000. Jesus, kids. They're still using the same gear to record voices. In fact, they use cheaper gear to record the voices, much cheaper gear today than they did back then.
Yeah, I was saying
the quality of the voices were better on the original, in my opinion, than they were on the new voices they recorded for it. Just technically, they were quality. It's a superior grade of audio recording.
But I think as well, it's on the fact that you guys acted with it, and it's like to me, I'd compare it with the fact that you would say, like, for instance, you get Will Smith doing his new film, and then suddenly there's an issue and they can't use his voice, and then they dub him over with someone else. It's not going to sound the same. It's not going to look the same because it's you with someone else doing with Troy's voice coming out of it. He has
well, there's that. And then it was, that the fans were so into it, no one would be happy with that new version except for maybe someone who'd never seen it before. So there you have Tom saying things like, for a new generation of fans, which is a code word for, this isn't for the old fans, this is for young people who don't know any better. So we'll give them this new version, which will come with our names on it. And that was, or they actually just didn't want to deal with me and Monica because they knew that they were on the losing end of that negotiation. There was no way they could ever come up with a piece of paper that says they own the rights to us for all these territories and for all these re-releases on new platforms and so forth. So they gave up, and they decided, well, we'll just quick on the cheap record this again and quickly go into a studio. Dave figures they were in there 5 hours maybe, and redo all of that and bring it out to the market. So by that time, this little, wow, let's just port this for the newest consoles and make some quick bucks. That plan is all totally screwed. But it's too late. They've already made all these announcements that they were at the industry events. Now they have to spend money on top of what they were already doing, and the underlying code is a mess, right? So they're already putting more additional resources, and it's delayed. Now they have to go hire talent for the voices, which because Cihi and Horgan are not signing, and they bring that in, that adds more cost to it. I'll tell you what, by the time it got done, and then we released it, and they used the original voices because they had all these fans threatening them if they didn't. They put both voices into it, which is now a treasure for archaeologists in the future. They'll be able to see that one game where they were stupid enough to put the redos on top of the originals that people liked, and you could just compare them head up, and you see why it was a mistake. Now they're faced with that forever, that this mistake of the HD is always going to be there, where people can head-to-head listen to both voices on the same product and find out why it was a mistake for themselves. Anybody can
I do think it's funny that,
everybody lost their job. P.S. Everybody involved lost their job. Okay? Tom's no longer there. Devin's no longer there. Everyone who had anything to do with the HD production paid for it in the end. So there's some kind of justice there, I think.
A lot of it is also was because of the fans' dismay as well. And Xander, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's kind of ironic, though, that all that happened. And, usually when, something HD comes out, it's usually something better and stuff like that. But when you talk to, Silent Hill fans, you talk to them, and, even Burham was just mentioning how he uses it as a doorstop. It's just really ironic because it's like you would think, it's HD, it's going to be better. But it's almost like, for the purist, it's like you got to play the original that was on the PS2. It's so weird how that worked out. It's kind of comical.
Yeah, and most people, if they want the HD experience, all they've got to do is upscale the PC version. And I was talking to Fungo about this as well, and he was basically telling me about the entire experience. The one thing that they never got right was they didn't need all that big code. They could have literally just taken the game, deconstructed a copy of the PlayStation 2 game, and then touched it up, and did all the appropriate fixes and error checking.
Yes. Yeah, I talked to Fungo too. He said basically HD is a joke because the PC version of it was already HD technically because it's a line count. So now, yeah, that does raise a question. If it was already there, all they had to do was put it in a box that ran on the consoles they wanted. Why did they bother going to all that effort? Well, maybe it did have something to do with people wanting to get their name on it. Maybe it did have something to do with that. Because why else would they have done it? They didn't need to. The PC version was already superior, and still is. Even now, the PC version is better than the buggy HD collection on what platform did you buy it for?
I got it for the Xbox 360.
The Xbox 360,
the PlayStation 3, yeah. They patched the PS3 version of the game, but they never patched the 360 version, hence the reason why it's unplayable. So it's there as basically just having this kind of mistake. Wow. The thing was I wanted to play it on HD because I wanted to enjoy that experience. And I couldn't do that. I remember I was talking to my brother about it. He had the PlayStation 3 version, and he's the one who kind of got me in touch with like watching like Twin Perfect and going through the whole ordeal and watching how this game. I was like, this thing's a piece of crap. I was like, I can't play this game. And he goes, well, you need to see the entire story behind this. And when I watched it and I looked at it, I was just like, man, you know, the funny thing about this, if they acknowledged you, if they acknowledged your concerns, they acknowledged everyone's concerns in this whole thing, none of this would have happened. None of these issues would have happened, because at least, you know, and also.
Well, I don't know. Now that we've talked it through, it does seem like the HD product was doomed to not work. So it wouldn't have mattered about which voices were in it. If it had only been my voices, it would have been our voices that didn't work. As it is now, it didn't run on the 360, right? It was buggy, and it's got both voices on it. So it's probably better off, actually, for Monica and Dave and I, that it ended up that way, because we're not connected. The taint of the HD collection version doesn't come back to us in any way. It's all the people who were new involved in it got that hung on them. That wreath of shame got hung on them.
I think a lot of it was notoriety as well. I think Tom wanted to be recognised for this project. It was going to be his standout project. And the problem being is he bit off a lot more than he could chew. I think the dev team behind it, the people that were working on it, had no clue what they were doing. If they gave it to the team that did, say, like, for instance, they did the HD ports of God of War, which they managed to port that successfully and went through a code of practice that they did, I think we would have had a very upstanding HD collection. The whole thing, and I think you hit the nail on the head, was it was money. He wanted to make sure they did it and did it on the cheap, and the problem was by doing
well, we're just speculating from outside, but you know, the team, whoever they hired to port it over to Xbox and PS4, did a bad job, and then they had excuses, of course, for why they couldn't do it. And they blamed the source code they got from Japan for it. Everybody started pointing fingers at each other. But yes, it didn't work out. They might have chosen a better company to do the technical work to port it. Yes, they might have, but they didn't. And once they were involved with that group and 3/4 of the way through the project and realizing the problems, it was too late to say, hey, you're fired. We're going to get somebody new that does the better job than you. It was, you know, they had already made that bed. They had to lie in it. There was no question that they were going to change it. Change production companies.
That's a shame, though, as well, because it's kind of, it went from being kind of a labour of love to, or kind of like a swan song, so to speak.
For who?
Well, for like the entire Silent Hill fan base, you know.
No. See, you're talking about it as a fan, and I appreciate that, because you guys are, you know, it's pure. It's just your experience with the game, your community with other people who also experienced it. That's a pure sense you have. Those guys it's just money. You know, he's a producer. His job, they had a very small office there. It was all about the money always, and the rest. I don't even want to talk about it anymore, because it was disappointing for me to be there with them and see how short-sighted they were.
No, I agree.
About the fandom, you know, the words that those guys used to describe the fandom was despicable, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you on it, and that's as I said, it's a shame, and it's a shame for all parties involved.
Let's talk about my new game before I run out of time. It's been an hour already, so I want to.
That's another thing. Let's go on from that, because you spent time being kind of away from the voiceover scene, and now finally you've actually come back and you're lending your voice to a new property. So let's talk about how that got started. First, tell us a little bit about the game itself. You know, what is it? What's the
game's game called Forgotten Memories, and to be very straight about it, it's very much like Silent Hill. It's very much like Silent Hill 2. Somebody, AppSpy, did a review of a pre-release beta that they can play, and that's what the guy said. And I couldn't agree more. I was watching him, so let's play of this new game. He says, "Hi, this is reminiscent of the early Silent Hills, in particular Silent Hill 2." Not an accident. The fellows who are making it, it's a financed independent game production company. made up of industry veterans who are technically sophisticated at what they do. So they have selected that genre to develop their games in, horror, psychology, thriller, and they know, because they're fans of the early games, the importance of the story and the twists and the layers that are revealed only to the player over time. And rather than a jump scare Hollywood style, it's all in your head. It's what you don't see that's scary, or the things you imagine. So I have great, at least on the come, I haven't seen it yet, but they talk a good show. Otherwise I wouldn't bother working with them. It's not that people haven't asked me to do projects. I haven't found any where I felt comfortable getting involved. So these guys found me. They said we were fans in our teens. We have a game company now, and if it would be our great honor if you would work with us on it. And because of your talent and your position in this world. And I said, well, thank you. I'm flattered. Show me what you're doing and talk to me about your stories, and then I'll see. I'll see. So that's how it started. And as I say, I thought, wow, geez, these guys are good. At least what they're talking about is very good. And graphically, what they're producing is very good. They have a technical expertise with the Unity authoring system. They've created their own rendering engine. So the CEO and founder is a programmer, and he wrote his own rendering tool that connects to Unity. And as Unity, if you don't know, is a 3D game authoring system that publishes to PC, Xbox, Android, iPhone, and Kindle, for that matter. So it's one, you put all your resources into this one big Uber system called Unity, and it pumps out 3D game content to all these different platforms. It automatically ports. It's like a dream machine. It doesn't work, but that's the theory of it. And eventually, with enough money and time, Unity, the makers of it, will sort all these things out. It even pumps straight through to Facebook. You can create a Facebook game straight through. It's very cool. But it's got, it's got some drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks is it's unable to render high-speed, grainy, very rich Silent Hill 2 like horror graphics that don't stutter onto these mobile devices like the iPhone and Android phones. The fellow who's founded it developed software that does render smoothly onto those platforms. And so he's working, Unity's very interested in working with him, as is Apple, because Apple wants a piece of this business too. They want to be able to have games that bring that immersion to their device. They've certainly got the screen resolution, right? If you got a nice iPad, you got a big enough screen to enjoy that wherever you are, and you've got the pixel resolution to spare for what the game rendering machines can produce. So now, it all sounded really good to me. I thought, oh, show me what you got. And from what I can see on YouTube, it's very sharp and very clear. Then they went for my weak point. They said, would you mind if we made the character look like you? Well, let me think.
That's like everyone's dream, is to be in a video.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sure. Why not? So show me what you can do. So then they did that. 72 hours later, I get this beautiful rendering that came back. I hadn't seen anything like that before. And I thought, oh wow, these guys got moxie too. They not only are they going to come after me, they're going to suck right up to my ego and do this beautiful drawing of me. How could I say no? So anyway, I'm in. Now I'm trying to develop my character. I was reading some of the lines and getting into character. I had Dave come by. We read together for the trailer for that's going out, and it's I'm rusty. I really want to do a good job. I don't do anything half-hearted. So I really got to immerse myself, and I find myself talking to the producer about whether my character, actually has what type of feelings does he have about this person he's talking to? Is he harboring some latent resentment, or is this just a respect relationship, or where am I here? So it's getting good. And it's the kind of dialogue I wished we could have had back in the day with Silent Hill, but we didn't. The people who pretended to be there advising on the performance were useless. The only people who actually had anything to add were the Japanese Team Silent guys. And fortunately, Sato spoke enough English that and I spoke enough Japanese, as did Monica. We could all talk directly and get right at what it was they were wanting. Other than that, they were very, very open. So Monica and I both busily went off and, as trained actors do, wrote our backstories. So we came in knowing exactly who the characters were because we created them. We wrote our own stories for who we were. That's who we acted. That's who we were, and probably our backstories were very close to who we are, so we could touch those places emotionally. This character, now we're going through the stage of Nathan Barnes. He has to be, in many respects, someone I am, so that I can be, not act, those lines. And then they're going to fly over. They're bringing over this new mocap equipment to shoot my face and record my lines at the same time. That's pretty good. I said, hey, I can come they've got an office in Montreal. I said, we can do it in Montreal. I'm happy to come up there, but they seem pretty keen to come to Japan. Dave's here too, so we could shoot his scenes while they're here.
It gives them a little bit of a holiday as well at the same time,
Yeah, I think they got, like you guys, they got a young development team, and if they say to them, hey, we're going to Japan, we're going to shoot Guy Cihi and Dave Shuffley, oh man, what, no shortage of stuff for them to tell their friends, and they're going to Japan. That'll psych them up, and that'll be great. That'd be great to have them here too.
You know what the most exciting thing about this is, and as not just from someone being a Silent Hill fan or a gaming fan, or you're kind of hitting all my hot spots as an actor, because that's exactly the kind of process I go through when building a character. But it's going to be on the Wii U, and for me, and me and Xander being avid Wii U fans, this is kind of, for this generation, it's always been the underdog in terms of the consoles. It's always been considered by Nintendo consoles as being very kid-friendly. And having something like this, having kind of a Silent Hill kind of esque game on that console, for me, is a big deal, a very, very big deal. And it also gives us an extra little bit of content coming out from that as well. And it gives me a chance to experience kind of your whole acting and your whole semblance on a brand new system.
I think that's great. I think it's because Wii U doesn't matter that they're doing it. I think that the Unity device could easily put this out to other platforms, and they are not doing it for a reason. Now, I haven't asked, but I will now that this has come up. I suspect, because I have heard on several occasions the owner telling me that Apple's really behind this. I believe part of the deal is Apple's going to promote it because it's not going to be out on the consoles. And Apple wants that business. They want to get their finger into it badly. So in order to just throw a bone to the console players, they put it on Wii because nobody cares about that as a competitor for the future. It's not the future of these games. You follow me?
Yeah.
Just as a strategy. So Apple wants to have it on their devices, and they can't lay down the hammer. It has to be an exclusive for us because that isn't going to fly. But there's going to be a nice period of time where it's not out on all consoles. Is there a reason for that? Well, it costs money to do it on each console. You got to support it. You got to debug it. So you need specialist engineers for each one. They're indie. So they chose the console. Let's call the Apple device as a console. They chose the console that gave them the best offer. And Apple stepped up and probably offered them promotion in exchange for some period of exclusivity. I'm going to guess. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I think it's clever. I think that's the business side of making games. You got to go out there and you got to use your skills and talents. No doubt, bringing Dave and I into the project has raised their credit at whoever they're going to talk to about this game. Right? It's like bringing in. I'm not saying I'm Norman Reedus, but for an independent game company to come and say, well, we've got the guys who are in Silent Hill helping with this. It definitely has raised the prospects for the game's success.
Yeah,
and that way
it's basically catered towards that kind of fan base that wanted that HD Silent Hill 2, for instance.
Yeah.
It's given them that kind of a whole new level of experience with you. And for me, as a fan of yours as well, I'm excited to see you bring your voice talents back into another game. I felt as kind of any person, as someone who craves like those actors who can come out and who can present those type of roles, which you can get lost in a sense, those visceral feelings and experiences. To see that like come from you and see you bring yourself out into more characters is something what I've been yearning for, and I think a lot of us fans, Fungo included, have probably been yearning to see you actually get back into this and do another game, because it's...
Oh, thank you. I'm feeling more pressure now. As I said to my son is just about to open on Broadway, and he's professionally trained. I took a couple of semesters of acting. He's got a master's degree in acting, and I said to him, well, hey, guess what? Your old man's going to be in another game. But it suddenly dawned on me that, yeah, I'm going to be in another game. Oh, damn, I have to do a good job at this. I have to prepare. So he's like, now you're getting it, Dad. This is work. So I said, well, how can I prepare? He said, well, go watch performances that were great, that you respect, and learn from the masters who've gone before. So I've been out digging around looking for detectives. I can't go too far from who I am because I've already learned that. You don't act, be. So it has to be within my experience set for me to be good at it. I think I'm good. I think we're good. I think the character is someone I can really fulfill. I can bring what I have to it. And from what I've heard of the way the story evolves, it's pretty twisted. So it would just get better and better. We'll start out seeing everything one way, and we're going to end up seeing things quite a different way down the road. It is a series of games. The first one will be out next month, believe it or not. And that's why there's this rush to get Dave and I, because we're recording some kind of Easter egg lines in the first version. We're not actually in the first game. We appear in the second one. But there'll be some devices like an answering machine that has a recorded message, and it happens to be one of our voices in there, in this first game. And then I think we'll also appear in the trailer, for this first game. But we'll be in the next one, which comes out early 2016. So that's why the mocap and so forth will be done probably in the fall of this year. So we're fleshing out the character now, in terms of who he is. That had to be done very quickly because they want lines recorded for this first game. And the relationship between the protagonists, the lead female role, who's named Rose Hawkins, and my character, Nathan Barnes. So once we understand how they are together, why they are together, then we can start to delve deeply into the dynamics of this relationship, which are going to evolve through twists and turns, much the way psychological horror does evolve and bend the way you think. And according to the guys, and I sense some of this coming, and it'll be easy for me to do. It has a lot to do with stereotypical male-female concepts, and maybe playing the game and acting in it will help expose some of our predispositions towards patriarchy on the man's side, and on the woman's side to using feminine charms to get men to do things for them, and yet at the same time wanting to be respected as an independent spirit and capable partner in all things, yet at the same time manipulating men using their guile and wiles. And then the man being manipulated, and yet at the same time feeling like we all do today, we're kind of walking through a minefield, or we're walking on eggshells with women who want to be respected for who they are and not looked at as objects. And so this is really interesting. It's timely. And I thought, oh, yeah, all right, I appreciate it. I have 3 daughters. I very much appreciate being able to explore the notions of how men want to care for and be helpful to women, but also are naturally drawn towards some forms of stereotypical behavior with women, and at the same time are easily manipulated by women. So I'm only going to speak for the man's side on this equation. The person who plays Rose can probably tell you more about how she feels or what direction she's being given about how women approach men, or how they think of men. So I'm excited. It'd be good if you think of it this way. When I made Silent Hill and I stumbled into that opportunity by accident and changed Buttle to Tuttle, or Tuttle to Buttle, as it were, I was dealing with a very tremendous loss and huge self-loathing and regret over my broken marriage, which left my 2 young children in limbo. And I think probably you guys know people in that situation these days, because you're getting to that age where that stuff happens. And so the game, acting it, was cathartic, and it helped me to work through a lot of the problems that I was living. And now, with 3 daughters growing up and challenging me constantly and manipulating me constantly, and successfully, I might add, I'm going to evolve again. And this part is specifically there for me when I need it, to learn how to stop limiting the way I think of my young women in my life and start empowering them and expecting them to do more. And it'll be fun. It'll be good.
I think in a sense it's kind of your own journey, so to speak. And as you know, I remember when you talked a little bit candidly about your experiences and how you built up James when you did that live stream of Fungo. And I sent you a message afterwards and basically stated that your experiences mirrored mine. You know, it's very nice to hear someone else talk about something like that and talk very candidly about it, because sometimes
it's heavy stuff.
We also forget that we feel that sometimes we're suffering alone, but we never, you know, when we hear someone that we look up to that, you know, has been a major part of our life, talk about the fact that they've suffered through those same things, it makes you think. And you know, as someone watching that stream, I was kind of an outsider looking in a sense, and listening to you speak candidly about it, it kind of gave me a bit more, I wouldn't say more closure, but it gave me that whole somber feeling of, I'm not suffering alone. He's been where I've been, you know.
That was hard for me too, Michael. And it was very hard because I'm not normally an open person. I don't usually talk about that type of thing, but having a chance to talk with fans in different ways, including this podcast, and talk about, I see myself becoming a lot more open than I ever imagined I could be. And it's not bad. It's not bad. I don't want to fall into pointless complaining.
Of course.
I'm all about moving on and learning from the past and evolving, not repeating the same problems. And I think that's the best advice that I could give to anybody who's suffering, is learn from it. It's part of the richness of being alive. Don't repeat this problem again. Just make sure that as you go forward, you remember why it went wrong or how it went wrong, and don't let yourself get into that same situation again. Learn from it, evolve. So now I've learned that one. I'm not going to have that problem again, the Silent Hill problem. And I'm going to get into this new game, and I'm going to learn about how women can best get on with men and how men can best get on with women. It's a very timely subject. I just watched a show on something called The Sexodus, which is this notion of men pulling out of involvement with women and rejecting it. It's like it's just too much trouble for young men to bother getting involved with women. And it's not a small number. So they're retreating into mates and sports and gaming and their work and occasional and I guess pornography and hookers. And they don't need a woman in their life. That's a very unfortunate road, but that's where we are. There's a lot of bad cultural conditioning that's happened in the last 30, 40 years that's led to this point. So it's going to have to wallow at that stage for a while before our culture turns around, and maybe we need some kind of men and women need a mutual enemy that they can bond together against. Right now, men and women seem to be turning on each other, and I don't think that's a mistake. I think that the media and the programming has conditioned people for that. It's sad. So this game is hopefully going to be a pill, the blue pill or the red pill. It's going to be a pill for getting you to rethink what it means to be in a relationship with women, not just a significant other, but someone at work or a parent, perhaps. Yeah.
I hope so.
I'm looking forward to it.
Being someone as well who's growing up with two daughters of my own who are avid gamers, there has been a lot of issues in terms of the male and female dynamic, especially in terms of gaming, and I've always sat there, and I think we should be a culture that's more enlightened rather than becoming a culture that segregates, because once we start segregating and pointing the finger at one another, there's no room for enlightenment, because you're not evolving, as you've said. It's kind of, you're diverging, which ends up getting us into a situation where we say, oh, we don't, one side doesn't need the other, and then we segregate, and once we segregate, we do irreparable damage in terms of not just our own development, but the development of the future, our children, and then our children's children.
Absolutely. And I've never really noticed that people have problems getting on well with each other. But it seems to be some kind of entity issue, like this government or that government or this religion and that religion. Although it's not usually the people who have problems with each other. People are people. And
it's very much propaganda in a sense.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Definitely.
All right. Well, and now, are there any questions that you'd like to hit any more? Because I think I'm going to wrap this up.
Of course. Let's forward a question or two to Xander and to Jamie first, and then we'll wrap the show up. Okay. So, Xander, you go first.
Yeah. This is going to be a question completely out of the ballpark. Because I was watching a live stream, and I remember you were talking about video games, and you said you didn't play a whole lot of games, but you played a lot of first-person shooters, and you had a Wii, and you loved Mario Kart. So I wanted to ask you, who's your favorite Mario Kart character?
Well, thanks. This is a good question. I bought the kids a Wii, And when we were buying it, they were so excited. Dad's finally getting us a video game. And I was at the shop, and I had heard about these other games, and I asked the guy behind the counter, well, are these these kind of games over here in this section, are any of them available for the Wii? And he goes, well, there's this Call of Duty. That was pretty popular. So I kind of slipped that in the stack of games that the girls were buying. And that's how that happened. He says, well, and there was a guy standing behind me, and he says, well, if you're going to get that game, you got to get this thing over here. There's this adapter where you put the controller, and it makes it so you can point it at the screen like a weapon. So I bought that too. So that's my experience with first-person shooters. Is I played Modern Warfare, and I enjoyed it very much. And I thought, I understand how people get sucked into these stories and develop relationships with the characters. I really, really get it now. Now, back to the question. I used to play Yoshi. Then I played Toad. And I think it had to do with that he was so easy to see on the screen with that kind of white and red mushroom cap head. Now I only play Mario. So there you go. And nice. I played the Mario character because the girls, I only play with my daughters. Oh, I think I played with my son once over the holiday, but they play the other characters. So no one's taking Mario. I thought, I'll take Mario. No, I play Mario. And I'm good. I'm real good. It took me a while to get back into it. My eldest daughter thought she was going to have an easy time with me, and she did at first, but she won't play me now. I go in and practice sometimes, and I play against the Ghost, and I'm racing all my previous best times. And I figured it out. This game, you just need to memorize the courses. Once you've memorized all the race courses, then you can just race. And I like playing with none of the items on. I turn off all the items, so it's just a straight race game. But the girls don't like that, so they turn on all the items, and then I suffer along, and
they try to get that. They try to get that little inch.
Yeah, they try to get that little edge. Their eyes are sharper, so they can see the little things that have been dropped on the course further ahead than I can. It just looks like a kind of a fuzzy mess when I'm playing. But so that's it. I play Mario in the red costume, I guess. If it's green, it would be Luigi, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I play Mario. Thanks for asking. What else you got?
Oh, well, I guess my last question before we pass it to Jamie was, working with Silent Hill 2, I'm pretty sure you got to see a lot of the concepts before anyone else. What was your first initial thought when you saw the iconic Pyramid Head?
Nothing. I never saw him. They never showed him to me.
Oh, they didn't? Wow.
No. I'm trying to think, since you asked, when was the first time I saw Pyramid Head? Well, it was 2000 when we recorded it, 2001, 1999, 2000, somewhere around in there, right? And I never saw it. I didn't even know the game. Dave said, hey, it's on sale. You can see it at Staya in Shibuya, and Shibuya is where my office is. I think I must have stopped by there. Maybe it would have been in 2001 or 2002, and they had a display panel and the game on it, and there were controllers. You could play it a little bit, which was like death for marketing that game. Imagine walking up and you can play a demo of Silent Hill 2 while you're standing in a video game shop. Or a media shop. Ain't gonna happen, right? Because what do? You go to the parking lot, there's this long cutscene, then you run down a path for half an hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nobody bought it. It was a total failure in Japan. Yeah. That was, I'm guessing there was a Pyramid Head on the poster. That probably was the first time I saw it. And what were my thoughts? That's a strange looking creature, huh? It's a man with a red triangle hat on. Okay. I didn't really have a very big impression. It certainly didn't scare me when I first saw it. I didn't think it was horrible, but you guys watched it in the context of the game when he first appears looming behind the bars, not attacking, not retreating, just standing there. And I saw that for the first time on the playthrough with Fungo, the way a player sees it. And I thought, okay, even though we were doing a speed run, because I told him I had only so much time, and he did his best to get us through the game. Even though we were doing a speed run, I can imagine, had I been playing, I would have been stopping and checking out everything as we worked through to get to this point. And after having spent hours and hours and hours checking stuff out and fighting monsters and doing all this stuff, and then there's this horrible, looming, misshapen thing, and it's not attacking and it's not retreating, it's just standing there, that would have freaked me out, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So cool. There's my story about Pyramid Head.
So
Thanks for asking.
Let's go down to Jamie now. Jamie, go for your questions.
All right. Well, first I want to say that I'm really excited to be listening to your story and be talking to you, and it's an honor to actually be talking to you, sir. So it's wonderful to meet you this way. My question is, I am a avid cosplayer. I've actually cosplayed from the Silent Hill series. And I was wondering, have you seen any cosplays of your character James from Silent Hill? And what do you think? Like when you see people cosplaying these things, what are your reaction?
Wow, thanks for asking. That's an interesting question. I have not seen anyone in the flesh cosplaying James, but I have seen pictures, and of course, fans send me pictures, and I am touched. Again, it helps me to understand. I can't go into some of the letters I get from people, but they're really heartrending. The difficulties that people have had and that this game has helped them through are moving. And then at the same time, people who cosplay James have a reason they're doing it. It's not just like dressing up. They're doing it because they want to be in that character. And I have seen people as James. I've seen women as James. I've seen transgender people as James. And I respect them all for what they've done. It's not like it's not like dressing up like Sailor Moon, if you follow me. It's something else. It's a real commitment. There's not a lot there. It's a jacket and a way of thinking. So it's not like cosplay. It's more like character connection.
It's almost like as an actor you can kind of appreciate it more too, because it's kind of, getting into that whole atmosphere. You can kind of get into that,
Like every character that I cosplay, everyone's like, oh, you're dressing up, and it's like, you don't understand that, I connect with these characters. I take a lot of time learning voices. I learn character voices. I learn little quirks about the way they walk. I present a character. I've become that character.
Fantastic.
I very much want to show that this is why I pick this character when I dress up. I put heart and soul into what I do, and I'm so glad that you appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it more now hearing you talk about it, because maybe in my mind, and I didn't mean to be that way. It's just my ignorance. I was kind of dividing between a Sailor Moon cosplay and a James cosplay. I mean, but yes, the people who do it because they want to embody that character's persona and express through it. And a lot of work goes into it. I make Halloween costumes with my kids, and I know how much work goes into making even a simple costume. And when you see them, some of them are fantastic, and it's a lot of work. And you're right. I was stupid me. I'll bet they all put the same amount of work and care into adopting the persona, not just making it and putting it on like a costume. Silly me. Yeah, more respect out to all cosplayers everywhere
actually,
for that.
You said it was a Sailor Moon cosplay per se. I actually cosplay Sailor Neptune, the one with like the teal hair.
Oh,
and,
sweet.
and I finished her last November, and everyone's like, why do you want to be her? And I'm like, because I want to be like her. She's very mature. She's very graceful. She's very beautiful. And her partner, Sailor Uranus, I'm like, I always saw that, and I'm like, wow, I want to have that relationship. And my boyfriend, actually dressed up as Sailor Uranus in drag for me. And, he proposed to me as Sailor Uranus to my Sailor Neptune.
Awesome.
And so, there's always that connection with the characters.
Oh, that's so cool.
It means a lot to have people actually respect it and understand it like you do.
Wow. Well, thank you. I'm happy to be on this. I'm a big fan of cosplayers, and I get it. Yeah, I get it. Thank you. So, yes, I have seen some people, many types of people cosplay James, and I'm always impressed. They don't do it because they want to stand out in a crowd and some people might not even know they're cosplaying James because it's an old army jacket, right? It's not like there's a lot going on there costume-wise, but they do it for a reason, and it's connected to why that character is. I wish I could explain it in simple words, but I'll just tell you, I've heard time and time again from people who have had very difficult problems they've survived, and they understood themselves better from having played Silent Hill 2, and in particular James's journey. And I'm honored to have been a part of their renaissance or their recovery through playing the game. Big responsibility. I don't take it lightly. People tell you that they're alive because they played Silent Hill 2. Oh, that's a pretty heavy discussion. Yeah. So let's pick a light subject. Let's lighten up here. What else you got? One more.
Yeah, go on, Jamie. Go for
Jamie, one more.
Your final one.
That was good.
All right. Oh gosh, now it's difficult. Okay,
Pressure's on you.
Yeah, right. I guess I'll go ahead. If you watch scary movies, what's your favorite? Since you were in the horror game, Silent Hill, do you have a preference as to horror movies?
I'm really a big fan of comedies. I'm not really a horror movie fan.
Then what's your favorite comedy then?
I have so many. I love. I'm working on another video for my channel on YouTube, and I did a quickie with my daughter as Laura. She plays Laura, and I play James, and we did some lines from Breaking Bad. And
my gosh,
that came out very, very nice, and got a good reaction. So now we're doing a scene from a comedy called Galaxy Quest, which is one of my favorite films. If you're interested, on my Facebook page, I have a list of all the movies that I like. It's on the notes section.
Oh, all right, awesome.
I'm sure Galaxy Quest is there. So, look forward to that. We shot it last week. God, it was a busy week last week. We shot it this week. One night this week, I guess it was Tuesday night or something, we shot it, or Sunday night. And, Dave's in it, and my daughter and I. And, we had a great time. Now we have to just edit it. And I need someone to do the music, because I don't want to run into any rights problems, on YouTube. Where I know if I cut out the actual soundtrack, I'll get flagged for copyright infringement. So I need someone to do something like that soundtrack so I can lay it on.
An expert musician here, Mr. Xander Scullion. So if you need if you need to do any work for you, I think he would be more than happy to help.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. I'll be back. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mike and Xander, Jamie, for letting me talk so long. You sure got a lot out of me. I didn't think I was going to be on that long. And now it's time for me to say goodbye and to wish you all the very best in your projects and your cosplay and your businesses and your family life and everything.
Thanks, Guy. And you know, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. For one last thing, I'd ask you to, if you don't mind, would you like to plug your respective pages? Where can, if say someone who's listened to the show wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
I have a page on Facebook for Silent Hill and for now Forgotten Memories. That you just look for Guy Cihi, Guycihi. And then I've got a channel on YouTube under the name GC Navigator. All as one word. That's my channel.
Make sure, guys, all you got to do is check the links at the bottom on the YouTube channel. If you're checking us on YouTube, on iTunes, it's in the subscription box there as well. Make sure you subscribe. Guy's a very, very talented individual, so you make sure that you check out his stuff. If you're a Silent Hill fan, also, if you're a gaming fan and you want to check out some of his new content, check out Forgotten Memories as well. Xander, where can we find you?
Well, I also host another podcast, Excess Gaming Podcast, you can listen to on Podomatic.com or subscribe to on iTunes. Also, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Xander Scullion. I'm actually uploading a video right now where I'm doing a taste test on Norwegian candy that was sent to me. So be sure to check that out, guys. And yeah, and everything else is on, all my content's on the Retro and Limb Network. You
can also check out myself on youtube.com/TheNerdGenius as well, and Xander, of course, and everyone's respective stuff. Check it out on nerdgenius.com. Jamie, where can we find you?
I have a cosplay Facebook page with my fiance called Hazardous Cosplay. You can find us there. Our next con will be MomoCon. We'll be going down for Friday only. Big news, as RTX 2015 has been confirmed for us, so look for us there. And I have a YouTube channel, Shimeji. I will hopefully be getting back into the recording swing of things soon. I will have a review of Resident Evil Revelations up, so look for me, spreading hellfire about that one. And you can also find me on Twitter at GVirusJunkie, and Hazardous Cosplay just made a YouTube channel under the same name, so go check that out. We hope to have some shorts, cosplay tutorials, and some con coverage up soon.
As I said, guys, check out the links at the bottom, and basically if you've got any, if you want to keep checking us out, you can check us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, all other places that host podcasts as well. And now, just to say our very lovely goodbyes, this is for Guy Cihi, of course, for Xander Scullion, for Jamie Stiles, I'm Michael Burhan, saying that we've got gameplay. Have you?